Welcome to the Unhinged Podcast. We are your hosts, Darius and Emma, and today we have a guest speaker with us. Isn't that wonderful?
Yay!
Sofia!
It's me, Sofia the First.
The best, Sofia the First.
Welcome, guys. I hope you're all having a lovely evening.
Say your name.
I already said my name. My name is
Say your
Sofia.
name.
We don't do last names here.
We don't do last names. Y'all are gonna stalk up on
She's
my
Sofia the
Instagram.
First. Yeah, so today we have Sofia on today because this is one of Sofia's...
You sneaky little bit.
Not in a weird way, but this is like one of Sofia's, should I say, like, favorite?
One of my
true crime
favorites.
Yeah.
Not my favorite, but one of them.
Sophia,
One of them.
It's up high. It's disturbing enough, you know.
Sophia
Yeah.
likes listening to crime documentaries as a pastime.
I do. I really do. I just watching interviews too. Who doesn't though? Come on. Darius, you tell me you don't watch interviews about serial killers?
For sure. We do it in class, in our criminology class.
Yes, I
Okay.
definitely do enjoy.
I feel like it's
Trying
just
to convince
us,
yourself.
Sophia, that are just kind of messed up.
Let's be honest here. I'm a little bit psychotic, but you know.
But we love it, and that's why you're here on the Unhinged Podcast.
Okay.
And today, we are going to be talking about the Toy Box Killer.
Yes, so David Parker Ray, also known as the Toy Box Killer, was an American kidnapper, rapist, torturer, and suspected serial killer.
Really, like, serial killer, I think. I don't even
Yeah.
think we should say suspected.
Yeah, and that's why today's case is going to be a bit gruesome.
Warning, the following content explores mature themes revolving around sexual assault, mutilation, homicide, and kidnapping. If you are in any way triggered or easily disturbed by these types of mature themes, we, as the Unhinged Podcast, strongly encourage that you click off this video. Enjoy. Very
So,
quickly.
You know, just
So, sorry, Zafir.
warning you guys.
We
Indeed.
interrupted you, King. Please continue.
Anyways, it was said that David is responsible for the torture and murder of over 50 to 60
Ew.
colossal numbers.
That's
Women.
Women. Yes, can't forget that. They were sometimes even unidentified.
Yeah. So, David Parker Ray was born on November 6, 1939, to a violent alcoholic father and a mother who was a frequent drug abuser in Bella, New Mexico. David grew up living on his maternal grandparents' small ranch with his family, where his drunken father would often come and go as he pleased. When his father was present, he would visit David and force him to look, and then he later supplied him with violent, sadomasochistic, pornographic images. Super creepy.
Super creepy.
Literally so creepy. Throughout his upbringing, David would fall witness to many violent altercations that ended in his father physically abusing his mother. So every time David saw his dad, it was just always in a creepy, violent setting. Yeah.
Which, you know, I find quite interesting because in a lot of cases, if you realize most, like, because, you know, there's always that fight about if it's nature or nurture.
For sure.
And I find it's a lot of nurture because a lot of the cases, the serial killers kind of raised it or grew up in that kind of environment. Like, their parents may be abusers. Like, the brothers, what's her name? The,
Oh, you're talking about Aileen?
no,
Warnos?
not the Mendez brothers. Yes, the Mendez brothers.
Oh, Menendez.
That's the word.
Oh,
It's like, you know, like,
yikes.
their childhood was like, most of them was tough, and you know, that's why I feel like a lot of the times, like, it has such a huge impact on their lives. Even if they weren't physically abused and they were just neglected, it
Sure.
shows a lot of like trauma in their lives, which leads them to being violent in their like.
Yeah. Well, let
No.
me ask you, do you guys think that people are born evil? Or do you think, because you're saying it's a nurturing, which I totally agree with. I think, like, as kids, we watch our parents, we watch our family,
Yeah.
as we grow up and we soak it in, and we're like, oh, that's right, that's wrong. So if you're seeing your dad beat the shit out of your mom,
You
you don't really see the women as, you know...
as people, you see them more as just playthings. Like,
Yeah.
which just sounds so wrong, and it is. And like as a girl myself, it's crazy to think that like people have that sort of mentality, but it's the world and people do, and that's what we kind of have to change.
Yeah, and that's
And
what we
there's-
talk about on this podcast.
What's your input on this? And do you think that kids and babies can be born evil, or is it really just how they grew up seeing the world?
I mean, I think that know if you can be born evil, but you will turn. Sorry, not but. So I don't think you can be born evil. That doesn't make much sense.
And I agree with that.
Because you're born with zero knowledge. You don't know anything, so you have to learn everything. Nothing just comes with you when you're born. Like, you learn everything you see around you, right?
For sure.
And that's why I agree with you 100%.
Like, when you're born, you don't have a memory. You don't have a past life. You don't have nothing.
Exactly.
You come in blank, and everything you learn, you have learned from someone or your environment. So I think that's where it comes from. I think violent tendencies come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, as of, like, for the toy box killer, David, when he grew up, he eventually, went to school, and that's when David fell victim to intense bullying by his classmates due to his shy and introverted side when around girls. This news sprouted insecurity, drove Ray to abuse and drug and alcohol as a teenager, which I find can be very dangerous, certainly at such a vulnerable state.
You're still developing.
Yeah, and as teenagers ourselves, I just find, like, being already addicted and abused of, like, these sort of drugs, I find it, like, it must have been hard on him just, to live through these things already.
For sure.
And this recurrent abuse suffered both at school and at home, while fed David's secret obsession with sadomasochism, if I said that correctly.
Yeah.
But so once he graduated high school, he worked as an auto mechanic and later joined the army, where he was later honorably discharged at the end of his enlistment. Which, honorably, like, he did a good job, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he's a respected soldier and veteran.
To turn to something so evil after being so
traumatized and abused.
Yeah. Anyways.
So Ray was married and divorced 4 times in his life before meeting his partner in crime, Hendy. All of these marriages are said to have ended because of uncomfortable and violent behaviors that David was exhibiting. One of his wives actually denounced that David had confided her and admitted that...
To the kidnapping? Yeah.
To the kidnapping, yeah. Kidnapping, torture, and murder of a woman when he was younger. Unfortunately, at this time, his wife took it only with a grain of salt.
I feel like this happens a lot. Like,
probably.
There's these types of offenders that, say things that people are like, there's no way that's true.
Because they're such smooth talkers, I find.
For sure.
Personally, that's when I was coming on to, like, most serial killers, when in the circumstances, they will be, like, they're going to be, like, so... When talking to the police or being involved in certain things, they're going to be, like, super casual, like nothing ever happened. Which I find insane because it's like they're trained for this in their mind. They're like, yeah, this is so easy to fool the police.
Yeah, like, people don't think I'm being serious right now. So I could literally tell my wife I murdered and tortured a girl when I was younger, and she just
was like,
laughs it off, thinks I'm funny.
She was like, it's impossible. Like, I did not marry. They would be so oblivious to it because, like, I didn't marry this guy. Like, I married the perfect husband, right? And that happens a lot in a lot of cases as well, and which I find just insane.
It's just so sad because anyways, whatever. We're gonna.
I feel bad for these wives.
I feel so bad.
And like you can see, like his abuse and his violent behavior really just transferred from his father to him already.
For sure. We're gonna start by talking about his criminal activity, okay? Because that's probably why you clicked on this video.
Yeah.
On March 19th, 1999, David Parker Ray approached Cynthia Vigil, a local sex worker, where he posed as an undercover police officer.
Which disturbing already.
Already, like, what are you doing?
Police officers are known as something safe and
respected.
Undercover, just you think you're going to someone safe and you just end up being a literal serial killer.
Psycho, yeah.
Insane.
When Cynthia offered him oral sex as a form of bribery to avoid being arrested, David told her that she was under arrest for solicitation of sex work and placed her in the back of his car.
So I feel like because he was already undercover as a police officer, in her mind she's like, wait, what the
car? What are
like she's probably like going literally insane. But she's like, wait, no, he's a police officer, but it's not a police officer. Like, she must be so confused on what's happening. So that's when, let's say, like, David drove Cynthia to his nearby soundproof trailer that was later given the name as the Toy Box, for a total of 3 days. Imagine being in a soundproof trailer for 3 days, knowing, like, it's just I feel bad for Cynthia, honestly.
Thinking that the guy that you're with is a police officer and he brings you to this sketchy little trailer.
And just being tricked completely.
Yeah.
And in this toy box...
Darius is like, time out.
And like, you think as toy box, something for children because it's a toy and a box, but he made the scene so like, disturbing for like a children's toy. And that's when Cynthia was brutally tortured and raped by Ray, as she was strapped to a giant, I can't even say that word,
gynecologist
type table, which already there the name just sounds. With the help of an accomplice, Hendy, to add to the traumatic experience, Ray would play a cassette tape before her assaults. And that detailed what Cynthia would be forced to endure as she was raped and tortured.
Oh my God. And
Cynthia was told to address David as master and Cindy as mistress.
Here like a quote from Vigil is the way he talked. I didn't feel like it was his first time. So Vigil said this in a later interview. It was like he knew what he was doing. He told me I was never going to see my family again. He told me he would kill me like the others.
So this is, again, like, she felt like this wasn't his first time, which obviously we assume within the three of us, and I think this is mostly public opinion, is that it wasn't his first time. And we know based on evidence that he had assaulted other people. Mm-hmm. The sick part about this, coming back to our other topic about how the wife was like, this is weird, and he had 4 other marriages and they all ended because of these weird comments.
And it's crazy to think that he not once did anything to his wife, but somehow still managed to keep it away from them of his maniac ways and stuff like that. Like, keep it out of their lives and not bring them into it. He might have been violent towards them, but never once has he like raped them or brought them into that box. Excluding his daughter, which that starts a whole other conversation. We're going to talk about her later. We're going to talk about her a bit further on. But so...
So on the 3rd day of Cynthia's torture, just jumping right back into it, while David was at work, Cindy, his partner in crime and his girlfriend at the time, accidentally left the keys to Cynthia's restraints on a nearby table. So this is a major mistake that David would have been so pissed to find out about, which...
He will.
Yeah. He does. Spoiler alert. So knowing that this was her only opportunity to escape, Cynthia lunged towards the table. And keep in mind, she's being restrained on the gynecologist table, okay? Mm-hmm. She was able to acquire the keys and free her hands. Noticing her attempt to escape, Cindy, which is David's partner in crime, did her best to stop her, but was incapacitated by Cynthia when she stabbed her in the neck.
With an ice
pick that was on the table right next to her.
Which, I would be so done.
Totally. What do you think? Why do you think that ice pick was there? It was
exactly. It was
like,
asking for. They were asking for it.
Come on.
Like, in a way, like, if you think about it, like, I know revenge is not the better way to deal with this situation, but this girl, the only way for her to survive was to stab this girl in the neck, and I think it was the right way to do it. But like, that's why when she did it for her own sake, and when Cynthia ran out of the trailer, she was completely naked, wearing only a slave collar and a padlock chain, and as she ran to her nearby neighbor for help. Now, this neighbor ended up calling the police, which led to the eventual arrest of David Parker, Ray, and Cindy Hendy.
So, before arresting David and Cindy, the police were reluctant to believe Cynthia's story. Because of her history as a drug addict and sex worker. While in the hospital being treated for the wounds inflicted by her captors, Cynthia eventually spotted Cindy in the emergency room.
Bro.
Imagine seeing... oh my god.
Darius, what would you do? You were just held captive, you escaped, you had just stabbed her in the neck with an ice pick.
I mean, that's why she came to the emergency.
No, but
of course,
bro.
But like,
how do you explain an ice pick to the neck? Hey, fell on it. Sorry.
No.
Bro.
Fell on it.
Like, what would you do, Darius?
Upon pointing her out to the police, pointing her out, meaning Cynthia points out Cindy to the police, they were able to figure out that Cynthia's story did in fact line up. These turns of events ended up dispatching police into securing a search warrant to search David's trailer, where they ended up discovering the soundproof toy box and confirming Cynthia's entire story.
So what the police found in the toy box was shocking.
The famous toy box.
And it's actually an attraction now.
Yeah, most people go see it.
How disgusting is that? That they've actually...
I don't remember exactly where, but I know that, like, people go see it.
Yeah.
And I actually want to go see it, but I feel like just being in there would be, like...
Just feeling the energy
disgusting.
of that. Like, it's just, like... Ugh. Anyways, they found torture devices, the gynecological table, which apparently is still there.
That's
at this tourist attraction. There were restraints, a list of victims, and their abduction dates. So right there we know that this isn't his first offense.
Yeah.
He had a tally count of the assaults inflicted, which obviously we can assume are both sexual and physical assaults. The cassette tapes that Cynthia had talked about that were detailing the brutal assaults and tortures of Cynthia, I'm sure, and other women. There were Polaroids and videos of victims being assaulted and tortured, and so much more. Can you imagine?
And, like, just like this is so disturbing.
It's like a huge box of evidence.
First of all, yeah, huge box. It already puts them into like shit. They cannot talk themselves out of this one.
Yeah,
absolutely not. But like, it shows that like Cynthia was not the only one. There was around 60 other people that were kidnapped and have been through exactly what she has been through, which is just disgusting to think about.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for every one of these women. And back to the subject of, he even brought up his daughter into this. And not that he would do it exactly on her, but his daughter also started helping him.
Yeah, she was like a recruiter for him.
Because she thought it was normal. Because she found it out at one point and he was telling her that it was completely normal, which then led her to like think that. And when she found out it was like kind of weird, she was about to go snitch on her dad, but he somehow talked himself out of that one. But
yeah, it's crazy. Like we hear a lot about in other, not to like plug other podcasts and things like that, but just like we always hear that the kids are always just, they're always affected, whether it's emotionally, physically, or they were tortured themselves. And it sucks that we hear all the time that law enforcement fails civilians.
Yeah.
Because so often, 50 to 60 women. So imagine how many tallies that would be on that chart. And I remember, like, when I was researching this case, there was a lot of talk about David Parker Ray burying these bodies in a lake.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And one time he had, thrown a body into the lake and it didn't sink and it came back up.
Because it floats up,
It floats off. Yeah, exactly. And what he had to do was, about to get super graphic, he would cut open their stomachs and fill them with rocks so that the bodies would sink.
Yeah.
So David Parker Ray, when he was being questioned by police, they were like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Like, why are there so many Polaroids? Who is this woman in this picture? You have
where
videos.
Are all the bodies? Like,
Yeah, where are these women? And there's this lake, which I'll edit in the name, like when I type it in now, because it's escaping me, but David, after a few years after his arrest, I think, he agreed to tell them where these bodies were, because I think law enforcement, they had sent in divers, but they didn't find, but they needed to drain the lake, okay? Because these women were probably at the very, very bottom.
Because they had all the rocks inside.
Yeah, they had rocks, yeah. And they never, and he was like, I don't even think to this day they still haven't drained that lake, but he was going to tell them who these women were, what he did to them, and everything that they're asking him for, to indict him for these, like Darius had said before, like 60 murders. And he died. He died of a heart attack.
He died of a heart attack. I should have touched him in the face.
Can you imagine?
He was sentenced to death. Oh, that's what it was, and he just died of a heart attack.
That is the most. I just, you get so mad.
No, it happens a lot. I figured a lot of the time serial killers don't even get to their death penalty because...
Yeah, like Castro. Remember that guy? The Cleveland guy? He hung himself. What if...
Even Richard Ramirez, he ended up getting cancer instead of just getting electrocuted to death.
Peter Sutcliffe died of COVID. We're going to be talking about him in the next episode, by the way. Episode 3 of Unhinged.
But I also want to talk about, like, his torture devices.
Yes,
I don't know if you searched them up.
I
don't know if you searched them up.
Oh, I did. I saw them.
And this might be disturbing to you, like...
Darius, want to pull them up right now?
Let's pull them up.
I would recommend going on private browser.
Do you do not? But the fact is...
What is it called?
Toy box killer...
Torture
devices. This is about to get very, very disturbing.
Get into it.
To rape these women, he would use torture devices and from different varieties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To the point, like, he would use a knife to put it in. Like,
there was things I saw, actually, a picture where, Darius pulled it up now.
God.
It was
there was,
a
like,
piece
a knife.
of wood
that
had nails.
That's a knife. And it would shock them.
Yeah.
Like, imagine...
Well, I'm going to put all the pictures of, like, what we're looking at right now. But he would make, he made this, like, wood device, and he made so many other devices that he would, penetrate vaginally these women with. That was a wood piece with nails.
Yeah.
Nails inside of them. And, of course, this completely obstructed any, physical, like, the injuries that he inflicted.
They would 100%
were
die.
Everlasting. I mean, come on. This is like...
I feel like if that happened to me, I would die from the pain already.
Of course. Like, I would die of fear. Like, and I'm gonna insert a bunch of pictures here.
Like, we're looking at inside the toy box, and just looking at it is just so creepy. Like, imagine, like, getting shoved into this place with tools everywhere and getting tied down to this freaking chair. And that it's not going to end well. And you might not even survive. Like, thankfully, let's say Cynthia did, but most of them didn't. And it's just...
And I also want to applaud Cynthia for coming forward. Like, this happens a lot. Again, law enforcement fails to believe and take sex workers and drug addicts seriously when they come forward with their stories. And as I think our times become more and more modernized... we're starting to talk about it more. Yeah. People are starting to come out about their stories. And I think the Unhinged podcast would like to applaud Cynthia.
Yeah. For her...
Yeah, sorry, Darius is nodding at Cynthia Hendy. Vigil is the girl, but to avoid confusion, they called her Cindy.
So they have the same name, pretty much.
Yeah,
so
the same name.
You guys might be confused, like, how Darius was Cynthia... the victim, and then there was Cynthia, the abuser. Mm-hmm. But to kind of, like, separate both of them, we called one Cindy.
Yeah. She was known by Cindy as, like, loved ones.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's just the toy box killer.
That's why we wanted to, like, applaud Cynthia, the victim.
For
amazing. For just having the power to, like, push forward and, like, run away. You know what I mean? Like, just being in that situation, you would try to do anything possible. So.
Yeah. So, like we were talking about, the toy box killer's daughter, and I think her name is Jessie.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that we've omitted from this case because we wanted to really make it about David and how terrible he is and how he would manipulate all these people around him in doing his own bidding. And we can always do a part 2 to the toy box case where we go more in depth into these stories that came in the aftermath.
Her name was Glenda, but she did know about the situation of her father and tried to, like, it's just, their whole family, you could just say the whole family situation was messed up a la max. Like, it was just...
And she received jail time, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for her role in it.
Mm-hmm.
And Darius actually just pulled up that Cindy Hendy, which was David Parker Ray's partner in crime and his girlfriend and all that, she was released from prison on July 15th, 2019 after serving 2 years of, I assume of her, it says of her parole in prison. So, yeah, she's out, which is so scary to me.
But in a way, I feel like she also might have been, like, she was 100% involved.
Do you think this is like the Barbie and Ken killer? I wanted to ask you about that.
Oh my god.
Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo. What do you think? Do you think that's the kind of situation?
It might be similar. She might have been not manipulated. She 100% knew what she was doing.
She was horrifying.
She 100% knew what she was doing.
Her.
But, in a way, I don't feel like she would have ever done it, if it wasn't for her partner.
David,
you know what I mean?
You think?
Yeah, I feel like the only reason why she got involved in this is because of David.
For sure. And
right?
I think you're right. Also, like, Carla Homolka, which is like the Barbie, she was on a great path. She was 19, she was in vet school, or she was working at a veterinary clinic, and then she met her Ken.
Yeah,
Bernardo.
They were the perfect couple.
Yeah,
Barbie and Ken,
everyone
that's
thought they were attractive. You know, they were both quite successful. The only thing that kind of turned heads was that he was a little bit older, but
everyone was jealous of them, but they didn't have to be, knowing what happened.
Yeah.
And their first victim was actually her sister.
Her little sister.
Just imagine any sibling, even if it wasn't your sister. Just imagine doing that to anyone that you're close to. It's just.
Can you imagine, like, letting your fiance and actually, like, partaking and engaging in actively sexually assault?
She was also released, though. She was able to.
She's out. That's what I'm saying.
And at school,
she's had kids.
She had kids, and she brings them to school, and people are not okay with it. I would not be.
I would definitely not be okay with it.
And same thing for David's partner in crime. I would not be comfortable being in the same room as she is, because she knew damn well what she was doing. But I do feel like they did have some sort of, like, they wouldn't be. If they were kind of forced to at the beginning, but then just they were okay with it at the end. Like, you know?
What you mean. There has to be some type of, like, inkling or, like, feeling in that either wants to experiment or has this desire, like, this sadistic desire to, like, inflict pain. And I think Carla Homolka, when all that, you know, that they call it the police, the Canadian police at the time made a deal with the devil because they made a deal, and then they ended up finding all this evidence that Carla Homolka was an active participant in the sexual assault.
Very
active. She was the most active. And it's terrible.
Like, she was as active as her Ken, but I do feel like he kind of introduced her to it.
I think so too.
He introduced it, but that does not mean that she doesn't deserve prison time. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and maybe she would have done it. I know, like, Carla Homolka, she had changed her name, which I'm not gonna say just for. Actually, I'm not going to privacy, but
yeah, honestly,
just her kids. But whatever. It's just. Do you think she would have done something a little off later on?
Maybe, but
like, do you think she was a mastermind behind all this? Like, towards the end.
Towards the end, I think she was, and she was able to manipulate the police.
And other girls to come
in. If you watch those interviews, you're looking at her like you're lying. You were involved in this, and
100%. It's like frustrating watching those things.
And what like literally makes me like, what drives me insane is the fact that she has children, and like, what's happening in her mind? Like, what if your children was the next one? Like, you know, like
exactly. And it's like, I don't understand how people who have inflicted such pain, and in Carla Homolka's case, on her own family.
Yeah.
Her family. She put her family through intense shame, ridicule, just. The worst that a family can go through. They lose their daughter.
Yeah.
They find out all this stuff about their other daughter
that was killed because of her older, like, you know.
Yeah, and then Carla Homolka is let off. She's allowed to go and live her life. I think she still lives in Canada. It's like, this is a huge, like, this is a huge piece of evidence, like, in the conversation that our justice system often fails us.
Yeah.
And fails these victims' families. And
you know, at one point we were in class and we were talking about, what about, like, you know, the victim's family?
Yeah.
You know, but at a certain point, not the victim's family, sorry, the abuser's family.
Oh.
So, and they're like, yeah, but, you know, what about the rapist's family? Fuck that.
Yeah,
you raised that motherfucker.
And in that case, where do you think they learned that?
It's like their daughter was raped.
I'm not saying that every single rapist ever in history had, you know, a bit of an inconsistent, kind of deranged, unhinged family life. But what do you think, Darius? do you think, like, coming back to our discussion about do you think kids are born evil, do you think, because I did a project about this and it said that, you know, being a rapist or something like that can sometimes be, there's a predisposition that, like, entices that type of violence.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that you need to be, or how do I word this? Do you think that rapists are exposed to something throughout their life that triggers that type of
I think
malice?
I guess the people they hang out with.
I feel like you made such a good point. I feel like that has such a big influence on someone's mind, their friends.
Yeah.
Because
It's a direct representation of yourself, I find.
Yeah.
Your friends.
Because your friends have such a huge impact on your life without you knowing. And, you know, it's like all the parents say, like, pick your friends wisely and, like, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Neutral.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just, yeah, sorry, we kind of got sidetracked because Darius is pulling up
pictures
of the
from the
torture
toy box.
devices, and I think he's appalled.
And it's so disturbing just to see them.
It's disgusting.
But, like, saying, like, your friends have such a big impact on it. So if your friends are rapists and you saw them raping someone, let's say, and didn't do anything about it, you're still in on it, in my opinion. Like, I know you didn't.
I 100% agree. I feel like this is a huge conversation. Like, if you're a bystander in something, you're just as bad as the oppressor, the bullier, the perpetrator. So, coming back to David Parker Ray, he became sexually aroused every time he thought of a woman being raped. Right? This is the type of pornography that he was watching growing up. Yeah, I think that this is a huge clue to forensic psychologists that this type of thing may not be hereditary, but Sofia talked about it at the beginning. She brought up an incredible point. It's often in the nurture. It's often in
how they were raised, how they saw the world, and, you know, luckily I had parents that was able to take care of me, and they was able to show me different ways to see the world. And, like, you know, I still in a way feel bad for the serial killer's younger self, not their present self, but their younger self, and how they might have been abused or saw their parents abuse, like, their mom or something like that, like
each other. Yeah,
I feel bad for those children that have to face that. And you know I just
how do you walk away from that without trauma or predisposition? Or so
anyways,
I just think it's crazy.
Yeah, I think we summed up about everything.
We touched on about 3 different cases in this whole video. Darius, do you have any final points, food for thought?
He was listening to us the whole time, just like, and looking at toy box.
I think he's like disturbed. Yeah.
All I know is this guy's
yeah. He's a special one. He's a very special one.
Yeah.
He's dead now.
Thank God.
In a way, don't disrespect the dead, but kind of want to because he's mean.
Honestly, when the dead has inflicted enough death on the world, bye. Like, I don't care.
Goodbye, Felicia.
Bye. Anyways, this is Emma, Darius, and Sofia. Thank you so much for coming on the pod this episode, Sofia. We'd love to have you again.
I had fun.
And this is Unhinged Podcast signing off. Be sure to tune into our next episode where we discuss the Yorkshire Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe.
Yeah, unfortunately we were supposed to do it this time, but
episode 3.
Episode 3, right?
Like we said last episode, we were going to do it now, but it seems we did this instead. So
because it's such a fun, weird case. Anyways,
this is a weird
not case. A fun case.
Not a fun case, but a case to talk about that has such different varieties. Like, I don't know how to say that.
Yeah,
varieties.
There's a variety.
Varieties. I said it in French. Variety. Oh, fuck.
Anyways, thanks so much. Unhinged loves you.
Thank you.